Hello lads, hope you're well. Today I wanted to talk about masculinity, what it means to me, why it's important, and what I believe its place in the world is. Now, this is a subject that I've thought about speaking on for ages. I've probably wanted to a little bit, but the reality is it's a horrible subject to speak on. Rollo Tomassi writes in The Rational Male, which I'll come on to later in terms of that as a book. He talks about how every man thinks he's an alpha male, every man thinks he has game. Whatever you do, whoever you are, you think that is the right way of doing things, which to a certain extent is true, and that is why terms like alpha male, beta male, sigma, whatever you want to see, why they wind so many people up and upset a lot of people, because if you turn around and qualify what an alpha male is as something that's nothing to do with you, then you're going to get upset, you're going to get angry, and you go, no, I am this, I am that. And that's why, yeah, it's not a subject that I particularly enjoy talking about. It's not a subject that often does well on YouTube, I guess, if you want to talk about that in terms of clicks, but this is my channel and I wanted to give my 2 cents on it. For me, before we go into it, I will quickly mention what I sort of touched on there. In terms of masculinity, for me, the best book you can read is The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi. I've spoken about that book before on this channel. Again, I do want to stress, just because I agree with the overall principles of the book and I agree with what he's saying, that does not mean I take everything he writes word for word gospel. There are parts of the book I disagree with. I'm not going to do a full rundown now. Maybe that's for another video if people are interested in it. But the general essence of what he's saying and the general points and principles he promotes is what I agree with. Before we get into what I think does make a masculine man and what masculinity is about, I want to cover what I believe it's not. The reason this is probably going to be quite funny to some people is, obviously, when you think of the word alpha male or masculine, whatever, you think of the stereotypical 6 foot something, tattoos, arms out here, big beard and everything like that. And yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, that's not quite what I look like. And again, this is why it's a difficult subject to speak on, because as I just said, everyone has their idea of what it is and everyone can try and turn it around to who they are. That's not the point of this video for me. I'm not changing goalposts to try and say I am anything. Again, I think if anyone who comes out and says I'm an alpha male, it just looks like an idiot. Those are terms that they're fine for the high school playground when you're 17, 18, but if you're an adult saying things like that, you're a bit of an idiot. The reason I don't think masculinity is about physical prowess, for me, you could be the biggest, strongest, scariest guy in the world. If you have a completely awful mindset, then how can you say that you're a masculine man? If you're built like John Cena or The Rock or something like that, but you're a completely horrible person, or you're a complete doormat who gets walked all over, who doesn't treat people properly or anything like that, how can you say that you're an alpha male or masculine man? But how you're built, to a certain extent, has absolutely nothing to do with it. I believe masculinity as a concept is merely a mental state of mind and the way you act. Again, I'd put it to you, who do you think is more masculine? Someone who's built like John Cena or whatever, but they're a complete doormat who never stands up for themselves, gets walked all over, is maybe unemployed or something like that, or someone who's built completely the opposite, but they're a confident, intelligent lawyer who treats people properly and has worked their way up to the top of a law firm. In my opinion, in that situation, it would be the lawyer. For me, masculinity comes down to 3 things: confidence, empathy, and accountability. Confidence in who you are, confidence in your ability to perform in certain situations or to accomplish certain tasks, confidence in your ability to be there and look after anyone who may need you, be that family, friends, children, whatever. Empathy in the sense of someone who's a masculine man is someone who will be able to have other people put their trust in them. It's the kind of person that people often come to when they have problems. These are the type of people who just draw people in the sense of people are very quick to trust them. People are very quick to go for them for advice. If you're someone who has no empathy and just doesn't care about anyone, then that's not really someone who's going to inspire a lot of confidence or anything like that. And by accountability, I mean someone who takes responsibility for not only their own actions, but situations. They come in and they're leaders, they command. They'll come in and take hold of the situation and delegate. It could be something at work. If you're for a lawyer, for example, and someone comes in and says, no, right, I'm taking control of this case, and you start delegating out things. It could be a classroom, it could be you're a teacher and the kids are misbehaving and you come in. That's about taking accountability. And in terms of yourself, someone who is masculine is not someone who's going to go, oh, it's their fault, it's this person's fault, oh, blah. It again, and I made a video on this a few weeks ago, and it's come up a lot recently for myself, is about taking responsibility and saying, no, this one's on me. I'm in charge here, I put my neck out. Or even in terms of things about yourself, I'm out of shape, I'm not doing well in my studies, whatever. It's not because the chocolate forced me to eat it, or because my tutors are really mean. It's because I've not been eating properly, or it's because I've not been studying properly. Accountability is about putting yourself out there and saying, no, I am responsible for my decisions. If you're someone who can't take responsibility for even their own decisions that they've made or the situation you're in, you cannot say that you're a masculine man, because that is just obfuscating and passing on to something else. Someone who is masculine will potentially take responsibility for something that they didn't do, but they felt they could have intervened in, and that something bad happened because they didn't put themselves in there. Again, not to cover the video I made a few weeks ago, but if you have a situation where there's no accountability, you basically have a system that just doesn't work. You have complete chaos with no one knowing who's in charge or what's next or how to fix the situation. On a completely separate note, Boris Johnson resigned earlier today, so that's new. But jokes aside, politics, as I said the other day, is a prime example of where often quite, be it male or female, masculine personalities make it to the top, because quite often it's about taking charge, being a leader, drawing in those people, having empathy to empathise with the constituents that you're leading, having that confidence to put yourself forward for an election, and even if you're behind in the polls, to keep going, and then having that accountability to say, I'm in charge, I'm a leader, I've been elected, whatever happens is on me. And the politicians who often fade away or become very unpopular are the people who don't tend to do those things. Putting it more into day-to-day life, the reason I made this video, and I think it's important, is I think there are a lot of people, and again, I'll always say it, I'll speak from experience. I grew up with a dad who's 6 foot something, built like a brick shit house. I've got a brother who, very high level rugby, very intelligent guy, again, big strong lad, and I just don't look like that. I never have, and I probably never will. And because of that physical difference, I was never looked at, and I personally don't think I was ever respected the same way my dad and my brother was. That could be, that's how I viewed the situation. It could be that that's a me issue, that I'm seeing things through certain filters. But my point is, I didn't have the option to be the big intimidating guy. I had to conduct myself in a different way if I wanted to be listened to and wanted to be respected. I'm on my team's rugby committee. I'm under no delusions that I got on that because I'm the biggest, toughest guy in the rugby team, or I'm the biggest drinker or anything like that. I got on that because I played to my strengths of, I always try and empathise with the lads, I always try and treat them as best I can, and I genuinely care about them, and I genuinely like them. I also conduct myself with integrity, I believe. I'm not two-faced about things. I will always be honest with the guys about my opinions on certain situations, and I'll always put myself out there and take responsibility for whatever decisions come my way after that. In terms of a real life example, for me, the epitome of modern day masculinity is Daniel Craig's James Bond. I know it's a really obvious go-to, but hear me out, let me justify myself. I know I've just sort of spoken about how it's not about being big and strong and everything like that, and park what he looks like for a second. The reason I believe Daniel Craig's embodiment of James Bond is the epitome of sort of this modern day masculinity is if you actually look at how he acts in any given situation. He's not a robot. He's not someone who acts completely without emotion. You can see that in the different things that happen to him throughout the films. But he is always very confident. He's never scared to take on a challenge. He's very resourceful. He thinks things through. He doesn't act impulsively and get himself in trouble. He's someone who will always step up to the challenge and take on that responsibility. He can be brutal and ruthless when he needs to be, but he's never malicious. He never attacks people who don't deserve it. He cares for people. He looks after people that have looked after him. He's loyal. In most instances, he's very honest. He doesn't sort of, obviously when he's undercover, but in general to people, again, people he cares about, he doesn't just lie to get through. He's not scared to confront people, to take on different points of view and argue back as to why he thinks he's right. Obviously, being an assassin for MI6 is a very extreme example, but if you actually take the traits that he brings to that role and you applied them to your life, I think you'd be surprised at how quickly you'd see improvements in terms of the taking responsibility, being confident, putting yourself forward, taking on challenges, not making excuses, not passing on responsibility, not dodging or obfuscating when something difficult comes your way. I don't want to go on for too long about this because I don't know how long this video is going to be by the time I put it on YouTube, but I have filmed for quite a while now. I'm going to have to cut a lot of it out. I always knew this was going to be a difficult video to make, and as much as I tried to prepare notes, it is such a difficult subject to speak about in my opinion, because the reality is there is no set answer. All of this is people's opinion. You'll have, I'm sure a lot of people will say to me that no, if you want to be considered a masculine person, you do have to be big, strong, and everything like that. And I understand that. I think there's elements to that. I think you should have to be healthy. In my opinion, I think you have to be someone who takes care of yourself. But again, because that's that beacon for people to follow. People aren't gonna be led by someone who doesn't care for themselves or look after themselves. You don't look after yourself, how do you look after other people? And that sort of thing. Being big and strong, that brings confidence. It's a lot easier to be confident in certain situations when you trust yourself physically. So there's those components to it, but at the same time, if you're someone who for physical reasons can't be like that, I see no reason why in a mental state you can't be a masculine person. Again, takeaway message, if you haven't read it, Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi. Another book, there's loads of books on things like this, and they're all worth reading to help shape your opinion. Another one I read recently was The Way of the Superior Man by David Dedder, I believe it is. It was a good book, wasn't as good as Rational Male in my opinion. There's a few bits where you're a bit like, alright mate, calm down, like, chill out, we're not cavemen anymore. And again, even that little bit there are certain people that would disagree with that and say, actually, genetics wise and evolution wise, we are still very Paleolithic, which I guess there is a truth to. In terms of people to watch and follow on this subject, David Hammond, AMS, Steph is Cold, I don't know, there's loads of people. Like, you are not going to be short of people's opinions on what makes an alpha male. I do think when it comes to sort of the red pill community and stuff like that, just sort of going off on a tangent a little bit, I think there's a lot of good in there, which I do really agree with, but I do think, as anything, there are a lot of nut jobs and a lot of very bitter, angry people who say things that have applied in their life maybe, but aren't sort of general truths. But then again, we're all just giving our opinion really. Look, I will leave it there because I've filmed, oh my god, I've filmed for quite a while. So yeah, I'm gonna probably end up cutting most of this down, but we'll see. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I do appreciate you guys who stick around and watch. If you did find any of this useful, please do consider liking, subscribing. As always, comment your opinions below. I know a lot of people do have opinions on this particular topic. Yeah, if you could drop the video a like, it does really help the channel out. Till next time, take care, lads.